Hi, thank you for joining us. We are here to talk about normalizing author names. My name is Michelle Gregorio from the Aerospace Corporation, and I am joined by Matthew Vu. So who are we? So the Aerospace Corporation is a federally funded research and development center for national security space. We were founded in 1960, and essentially we provide the guidance and advice for all space missions for military, civil, and commercial customers. So we work closely with organizations to provide analysis and assessments for space programs that serve the national interest. We're about 4,200 strong, with 77% of our employees representing technical staff. And we're full of smart people. 25% have PhDs, 45% have Masters of Science degrees, 23% have Bachelors of Science degrees. And we span across all forms of engineering disciplines, from mechanical, aeronautical, electrical, computer science, among other science degrees. We are headquartered in El Segundo, California, where both Matt and I find our home base. But we have major regional offices in Chantilly, Virginia, as well as Colorado Springs, Colorado. But we are co-located with our customers. So we have offices across the entire nation, so we can provide on-site support. So where did our Fusion journey begin? We transitioned from the Google Search Appliance to Fusion 3.1 back in 2018. And we've upgraded since then. So currently our production environment is on Fusion 426 SP2. This environment is only accessible in our intranet, so we are not opening this up to the public. It's not publicly accessible. But we do have an external corporate website, and that actually is powered by a separate Fusion install, also on 426. We do have plans to upgrade to Fusion 5. Our Fusion 5 environment is on Kubernetes in the AWS GovCloud infrastructure, and that will also only be accessible by our internal network, and we do have plans to go live in December of this year. So what is it that we are trying to solve? So this is the problem. And I'm sure many of you have come across this issue as well. So we are pointing to multiple repositories, internal and external websites, document management systems, file shares, databases. So we've indexed about 4.3 million documents. The problem is all these repositories have their own way of storing what we can consider the author of that document. And we have no standards for how those data sources should store that data. So once Fusion crawls and indexes these repositories, our search index contains multiple variations for what could be considered the author field for these documents. And in the next slide, I'll show you an example of what that looks like. So let's take John and Jane Doe. So both these users contribute documents to various repositories, and we crawl those repositories. Now, looking at what we can consider the author for these documents, these are how these users are represented. So as you can see, John can be represented as J Doe, as his badge number 13579, John D, JD 13579, John Doe, and Jane is represented in different iterations of her name as well. So as you can see, they're all over the place. And, Fusion is just going to take it as it is. We didn't set any rules or anything like that. So this is what is indexed along with the documents. So if we just leave everything as is, the result, this is looking at it from the user perspective. If we left the rules as is and just crawled all those repositories, if you notice, we like to filter by author, because author is very important to our organization, because we write a lot of reports, and a lot of times you're searching for reports by a certain author. And if you notice in the facets on the left for this OG author S field, John and Jane are represented by those variations of their name. The problem is, if I'm wanting to filter by the documents that John has authored, he's represented in multiple variations. And Fusion doesn't know that John Doe is the same as 13579, is the same thing as John D, is the same thing as possibly J Doe. So filtering by John D, for example, will not bring back the results for John Doe or 13579, even though they are the same person. And Matt, I turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. So at a high level, what we want to do is we want to map all the author's name to a standard format. The standard format that we chose to map to is last name, comma, first name, and middle initial. So the first step to do that, the search team, we went through all the index documents and we identified all the name variations that exist in our data sources. So once we identify all the name variations, what we want to do is index our corporate identity database, and we create all those name variations for all the employees at Aerospace. So examples that you can see for John Doe, this is all the name variation that can exist for that particular employee. So once we have all the name variation created, we then want to store that into a separate Solr collection. Each employee will be stored as their own document. As you can see, for example, for John Doe, he is considered one document. We have a field called official display name, and this will be the name that we use to be stored as the author for a document. So once we have the name variation collection populated, we'll then create a JavaScript stage that will be used during index time to query this name variation collection. So for example, if we index a document and the author's name is 13579, and we create the name variation collection, John Doe will be returned back because that's his badge number. And we will then extract the official display name field and use that to replace the badge number in the index document as the author's name. We could have done this process either manually or using machine learning. And we chose to do it manually because it's easier to implement and to verify the work. So this is our simplified version of our JavaScript stage that we used to index the name variation collection. And I'll be going over this at a very high level. In the purple bracket, this is where we identify the name variation collections information. In the orange bracket, this is when we're looping through the index document authors and trying to find the mapping. And we're going to call the function in the next slide. In the red bracket, this is when we're querying the name variation collection directly. And in the blue bracket, this is if one document is returned back to us, then we assign that official display name as the author's name for the index document. As you can see, once we did the name mapping, our authors facet is much more simplified, and then users can find documents under one author instead of multiple ones. We still see J Doe exist as an author because this could have been either Jane Doe or John Doe. And we want only to map when there's a one-to-one match, and we don't want to match to any author if we're unsure about them.
So looking ahead, we want to leverage this kind of process for other metadata fields if possible, as well as automate much of the work that was manually done. You know, if there is a way to leverage machine learning, because that is something that we've wanted to explore in Fusion 4, and now that we're moving to Fusion 5, it seems to be better or more optimal. So we want to kind of leverage those capabilities, as well as apply other automations wherever possible. And that's all we have to share with you today. Thank you very much.